Many summers ago, I saved a small bird who fell out of a chickadee nest. The poor thing had been rejected by its parents, and all my attempts to put it back were in vain. They didn't want it. They actively attacked it. Instead, I took the little fellow home. I fed him with soggy rice, cereal, and hard-boiled egg yolk through an eye drop. I kept him warm with the UV light and nursed him back to health. It was the summer before I headed off to college, so I had plenty of time to care for my new bird friend. My girlfriend was less than amused. She thought it was creepy. It was soon made apparent that this was no ordinary chickadee. It had the body of a vulture, the head of a hawk, and the black feathers of a crow. It was a lovely, cuddly little bird, but no chickadee. No wonder they rejected it. The bright red eyes didn't help. Later that summer, I let him go free. He was off to pick his own earthworms and find a new family. My girlfriend at the time did something similar. Out of the two of them, the bird was far more courteous. That bird has stalked me for years. When a family of seagulls were making a mess of the hood of my car, that bird came in and scared them off. It stopped a pair of cats from making a massacre at my bird bath. It scared the neighbor's dog into shutting up, and it has been leaving me little gifts outside my house every month or so. Mostly nickels and dimes, but sometimes a lost bike key or a watch. I've kept one of those keys on my keychain as a memento. I called him Red because of his red eyes. Last time I saw that bird, he must have been about 4 years old and larger than most cats. Beautiful creature and smarter than a dog. He could recognize his name and caw in response when I called out to him. Sometimes he'd sit outside my window and watch TV with me. I once let him in and he sat next to me through the entirety. Dude, where's my car? He even mimicked the Andine skit and stole my popcorn. Cheeky bastard. For the past few years, I haven't seen Red. I figured he flew off with a family of his own. I've talked to a few ornithologists about what kind of bird he was, but no one had a straight answer. Some said a black vulture, but those don't caw or mimic voices. Some say it was a crow, but crows have a distinct shape. It wasn't a falcon or hawk either. They don't have that kind of vulture neck or sideways facing eyes. I figured Red was just Red. How he ended up in that chickadee nest was a mystery in the first place. Then again, since that summer I saved him, I haven't seen a single chickadee around town. At the start of the 2020 pandemic, I was fired from my job at the warehouse. They couldn't afford to keep me, and there was no discussion to be had. It was just numbers, nothing personal, my shift manager assured me. They let me go, and I stayed in my house for weeks counting my savings. I was in a dark place and spending my days thinking of ways to get back at them all. Burn the place down, trash their cars. I knew it wasn't their fault, but I needed an outlet. I got that outlet at the bottom of a bottle. At first, I just started siphoning my food budget into a drink budget. Over time, it just became my drink budget, with a side order of a hamburger every now and then. It wasn't pretty, but what the hell are you supposed to do when you're out of love, job, and friends? I remember one night when I was sitting in the park, finishing a bottle of punch and rum. The full moon was up, and all I wanted was someone to sit with me. Someone to take the drink away and tell me things would be okay. I just wanted to see Red again, watch a movie. Dude, where's my car? Totally holds up. At one point, a dark-haired man passed me by, and I thought about just yelling at him to keep me company. I didn't, though. Instead, I curled up in a ball and fell asleep on the bench. In that hazy moment between awake and asleep, I could have sworn I saw a pair of red eyes looking down at me from the branches. I'd kill those fuckers, I muttered, half asleep. I'd kill the whole bunch of them. I woke up to a pair of police officers poking me with their nightsticks. I had to come down to the station. As they led me out of the park, I could see warning tapes set up at an overpass at the other side of the park. 2 police cars were parked there, flashing lights, but no siren. Something had happened. A murder, it turns out. I didn't have much to say to the officers who interrogated me. I sat there for hours, answering the same questions over and over. But hell, they got me a nice chicken parmesan sandwich for my troubles, and a Coke. At the end of the day, I asked if I was under arrest. Of course I wasn't. Don't leave town anytime soon, they said. I would if I could. Turns out the murder victim was the shift manager at the warehouse. One step under my former boss, Kent. Stabbed 16 times. His wife had been waiting for him in the car. When he didn't show up, she went looking. Needless to say, she found him. I was a suspect. I was in the vicinity, and I had a connection to the victim. A motive. Then again, this isn't a big town, and a lot of people had connections to the victim. Pretty much everyone who lived on that street knew him, and the police weren't sure the wife was completely off the hook either. After the masked murders in the next town over, they were afraid something had spread to us. I was more worried about how to afford my next drink, or if anyone who knew me had seen me escorted away by the police. Being found drunk in the park, on top of being suspected for murder, wouldn't improve my employability. A few weeks passed. The wife of the murdered man disappeared suddenly, and the police now considered her a prime suspect. They thought she was trying to make a run for it. I had my own suspicions. I didn't think she'd be dumb enough to run. If she actually did it, she would have tried something different. This whole thing felt off, and thinking back on that night, I was getting more certain I'd seen those red eyes up in that tree. The next night, I was at a bar. I was sipping a single whiskey for hours, trying to make it count. At around 11 p.m., this beautiful woman sat down next to me, early 40s, with the biggest, warmest smile I'd ever seen. As she sat down, she waved at a young woman leaving the bar. Her daughter, perhaps. I was defenseless. I'd been alone and felt unloved for months. She was friendly, curious, and so easy to talk to. We talked about everything from me losing my job to her struggles, moving into a new apartment. I even mentioned red in passing. After an hour of chit-chat and small talk, we decided to take a walk. We talked long into the night, and we finally ended up at her apartment on the outskirts of town. Freshly renovated place. She gave me a kiss goodnight and told me things would work out. And, she said finally, I hope to see you again. I wasn't even mad things didn't go further. I was just happy someone that lovely gave me that much attention. They say all it takes for things to go to hell is just one bad choice. That's not how it works. Maybe it starts with one choice, but it takes hundreds or thousands of choices. My drinking didn't come from one bad choice. It came from hundreds, over and over. The next day, I took a long walk. I was in the best mood I'd been in for months. My mind was far away from the murder of my former shift manager at first. But it didn't take long for something to remind me, in this case, the overpass. My anxiety came rushing back. I was convinced his wife hadn't skipped town. I was thinking, maybe they just hadn't found her yet. That brought out another uncomfortable thought. Why would someone kill the two of them and not my former boss? Maybe they just hadn't gotten around to it yet. I wasted most of that day at home. A few drinks, watching Netflix, sending out a few applications. Nothing big, nothing I figured I'd ever get a response to. I'd been making tiny improvements to my CV for months. It looked as sharp as it was going to get. As the night came around, I decided that I should talk to my old boss in person. It was a dumb idea, but I wanted to make sure he could see there was no bad blood between us. Sure, I'd been mad at him at first, but all of this wasn't really his fault. I felt like I had to clear the air and wish him the best. And yeah, I'd had a few drinks. Not too many, but enough to make me think that was a good idea. Kent and his family lived in a house down by the lake. Great place, practically made for fishing. I took a long walk down that road, passing by 4 other houses on my way. When I finally got close enough to see the house in the distance, I noticed I wasn't alone. On the sidewalk, about 50 feet ahead of me, was a family. A man, a woman, a teenage daughter, and a young son. They were standing together, watching Kent's house from afar. I could only see their silhouettes as they stood in the darkness between spotty light posts. I approached them. When I got closer, they turned around. I'd seen these people before. The father had been in the park. That night when the shift manager was murdered, the daughter had been at the bar where I met... Yeah, the mother of the family was the same woman who took me to her home the other night. She looked so pleased to see me. That gorgeous smile. Had it always been so sinister? The only one I didn't recognize was their youngest son. He looked to be around 10 to 13 years old, with the same black hair as the rest of the family. They were all so symmetrical. Warm, beautiful people. Just seeing them on the street was like something out of a fashion magazine. They all smiled at me in unison. I took a few steps closer, raising a hand to say hi. The kid rushed me and almost tackled me to the ground with a big hug. I'm sorry, who are you people? I asked. You never caught my name? The mother smiled. That's fine. Fine, nodded the husband. Fine, said the daughter. The boy skipped back to his family. They all had the same dark hair, the same pale complexion, the same intense look in their eyes. The mother took a few steps forward. I wanted to run, but I had a feeling I wouldn't get far. I was a gazelle trying to stare down a lion. I had a great time, she smiled. I just wanted to thank you. No need, I nodded. The father of the family didn't seem to care, not a twitch in his stone-like face. I had a great time, too, I admitted. I know you did, she smiled back. She leaned in as if to kiss my cheek. There was something familiar about her smell. Her voice dropped. I'm doing this for my boy, she whispered. I don't care for you. What? What are you doing? She patted me on the back and stepped back. I'm making us even. I looked closer. Under the streetlight, her eyes looked red. The same for the rest of her family. Red eyes, all of them. The father was holding a box cutter. The daughter had a roll of trash bags. And the boy, well, he had a handful of earthworms. The mother straightened out. Something cracked in her back, and she suddenly seemed longer. Almost a whole head taller than me, and she didn't even wear heels. Go home, the mother said, with her back turned to me. I'm sure the next manager will need all the help he can get. I just stammered as the family walked away. The boy stayed behind looking at me. He took a few steps forward into the light and offered me an earthworm. He had this big, goofy, dirt-filled smile, almost endearing. And then, he said, and then what? And then, he repeated, tilting his head. He put an earthworm in my hand, then ran off to be with his mom. I had two options. I could go home and pretend I never saw anything, or I could do something. I decided on the latter. There was no time to call for help. I had to warn them first. I took off running through the adjacent yard. There was a small fence and I jumped it. I'm sure one of the neighbors saw me. I had to try. I almost lost my balance, but I managed to stay upright. I came up on the back window with a view straight into the kitchen. I started banging on the window, almost giving the woman sitting there with her phone a heart attack. There are people coming, I yelled. Call the police, there are people coming. She jumped out of her chair and clutched her phone with a scream. Kent came running down the stairs. The woman was dialing a number, and Kent rummaged through a closet in the hallway. You gotta go, they're coming, I urged. Just go. I felt like my heart was jumping out of my throat. I kept banging on the window until I saw the barrel of a gun pointed at me. I'm sure Kent would have pulled the trigger. He would have, but he didn't get a chance. A window on the top floor was smashed, and I could see the tall silhouette of the mother up on the shingles. How the hell did she get up there that quickly? Kent also heard it, giving me a questioning look. There was someone banging on the front door, and another window smashed on the left side of the building. There was a rumble in the air, like a deep caw. I saw the dark-haired father stepping in through a lean window next to the front door. Kent took a shot at him, but it seemed only to annoy him. I'm pretty sure the shot connected, though. Kent's wife dropped her phone in surprise, and I could hear an operator calling out to her. The father held out his arms, as if to make himself bigger, took a deep breath, and screamed. It was the loudest sound I'd ever heard, and it made the windows rattle and crack. His mouth was so large he could have swallowed Kent's head whole. His throat vibrated. Kent and his wife started bleeding from their ears. Mine were just ringing, but the two of them were crawling on the floor, trying to catch their balance. I tried the back door, but it was locked. I went back to the kitchen window, looked away, and smashed it with my elbow. With all the cracks in it, there was barely any resistance. The father was on the ground, cutting up Kent's shirt with his box cutter. Kent's wife was on the floor, holding her ears and trying to regain her balance. I crawled in through the window, looking for the handgun. My pants snagged on the glass, giving me a nasty cut. The father looked up at me. His pupils were dilated to the point where I could barely see any white at all. He had a completely neutral expression. He wasn't cutting Kent, he was taking off his clothes, probably to make the cleanup easier. We just stared at one another for what felt like an eternity. He opened his mouth as if to scream again. I saw the handgun just underneath one of the chairs. I snatched it up and pointed it at him. Suddenly he stopped. Not because of the gun, but something caught his eye. He closed his mouth and stared at me. His eyes were fixated on my keychain. It must have fallen out of my pocket as I crawled through the back window. The bike key I'd gotten from Red. It was still there. The father couldn't take his eyes off of it. You want this?" I asked. There was no response. I just went for it. "We'll trade, okay?" I said. You get the key, I get the box cutter." He tilted his head. Someone was going crazy upstairs. I heard furniture being torn and thrown, glass breaking, and something big was stomping around. I just unhooked the bike key with my trembling fingers. My hand holding the gun had gone numb. Gazelle and Lion, round 2. I held out the key and he was about to take it. He didn't offer me the box cutter, so I pointed at it. "Trade," I repeated. "Trade," he nodded. "Trade." So we traded, and he got up. He inspected the key from all angles and seemed pleased with himself. "Trade," he smiled. Kent crawled over to his wife, his shirt split halfway up the back. I could see the dark-haired daughter of the family wander around the hallway until she met the gaze of her dad. They squawked at each other. It wasn't just the sound of humans trying to squawk. There were actual squawks, the kind of sound that made their throats vibrate in a way I'd never heard before. The stomping upstairs stopped, and another squawk was heard. After a moment of quiet, they left the house. Kent's wife had managed to dial 911 before the father blasted our eardrums, and the police were already on their way. I would pay a lot of money to hear the recording from that call. I stepped outside to make sure the family had left, only to see the boy standing down the street. He was holding an armful of sticks and branches, his little eyes reflecting a bright red. I waved at him. He waved back. Then he disappeared up into the trees. A complete vertical lift, up and away. The light posts flickered, soundless. Kent did the best he could to defend me and to explain to the police that I'd helped. The whole thing was classified as a home invasion, and the dark-haired family was put on an APB. Kent was relieved, however. His 2 daughters had been at a sleepover. If they hadn't gone, they'd been upstairs in their beds, being torn apart. It took weeks for my eardrums to heal, and even longer for my drinking to stop. The same way you get stuck making 1,000 bad choices, you can dig yourself out by making 1,000 right ones. But just taking that first step and keeping that momentum up, that requires nothing short of a triumphant spirit. It's a struggle. Kent couldn't just magically get me my job back, but I'm proud to say we've grown into friends. He eventually introduced me to some people that got me working at the local movie theater. Now I run the projector, clean and greet people. Probably the best job I've ever had. You come to one of my shows, you're going to have a good time. But I wanted to post this story. I think Red is still out there. Every now and then I find an earthworm on the hood of my car, like an offering. There are still no cats around to bother the birds at the bird bath. The neighbors' dogs are still too scared to go outside and bark. I don't know, I think Red is here to stay. So I wanted to see if anyone else has had a run-in with these people. I found one other story that sure sounds like them, but I'm not sure. It does explain the area where the mother took me that night, though, that refurbished apartment complex. Could be the same place. Thank you for your time.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more horror tales.